Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. This does feel like I'm in an auditorium with this microphone, but okay, we'll go with it. Yes, so we're talking about the 5 wishes today. First of all, how many of you have signed or done the 5 wishes? Do any of you have the 5 wishes done?
I might have.
Okay. Okay, so you have an advance directive, a medical power of attorney or something like that. And this is essentially a legal document that would replace a durable power of attorney and an advance directive. This is both of those. This will serve as that. And it just sort of gives us a nice layman's term framework and takes it out of this legal context and puts it into what does this look like on the ground for our loved ones when this event occurs. Because even if everything I talk about in my other brews works and we're healthy and mobile and we live, ultimately it is all going to come to this. So this is something that behooves us to think about so that when we are in a state of not being able to make our own decisions, those around us who are grieving the loss of us, hopefully there's one or more doing that, they can not have to stress about what your wishes may have been. They don't have to guess. It is laid out very clearly. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the 5 wishes. Okay, so again, this is a conversation that a lot of us don't have with our family. It's not something that you bring up at the dinner table, kind of like politics and religion, what you want to have happen after you die. So a lot of people think about it, not a lot of people actually do something about it. So this document is trying to close that gap. The guy who developed this was a researcher, I believe. He spent some time at a hospice in Florida and realized that there was something missing when families were under duress trying to make these decisions for family members, and they just had no idea what their wishes were, and that was causing a lot of additional stress. So we need to kind of head this off at the pass, so to speak. This is not about giving up on life, but rather just preparing for the situation for those that you love when you are gone. Much like, if you want to be buried, getting a plot, having that stuff organized, having the money set aside, just take the stress off your loved ones. Okay, so this document meets legal requirements in 46 states. In the additional 4 states, you have to get there's an extra element of legal documentation, witnessing that has to occur. In Nebraska and Wyoming, it just needs to be signed by the appropriate parties, and everybody obviously involved has to agree, but it does not have to be notarized, and it does become a legal document, and we'll see that as we go to the end. Written in everyday plain language, and for just $5 you can have a personal copy, but we have eaten that cost for you and will provide you with a copy of the 5 wishes as you have in front of you. Okay, so here's the difference between what some of you may have with the advance directive done by an attorney who does your will, etc. It lays out who makes the decisions, which treatments sort of in general you're going to want, and we're going to go into some fairly good detail in this document of different situations and how you can make different decisions given that situation, whereas a standard living will often not delineate those in detail. And so when your loved ones get to that situation, they're like, yeah, there's a lot of gray area left with the legal document that is sort of taken care of in this document. With the 5 wishes, it delineates who makes the decisions, much like the legal document, but it is very specific about which treatments you want and more specifically don't want, how comfortable you want to be, or at least expresses that you want to be comfortable, how you want to be treated, and what you want your loved ones to know. If maybe you're estranged from some family members or you have something to say that you maybe can't say in person or weren't able to, then there's an opportunity in this document to add that as well. Okay, so at a glance, 5 wishes, who you want to be making these decisions. You're essentially your durable medical power of attorney or your healthcare agent. What kind of medical treatment you want or don't want, how comfortable you want to be, how you want people to treat you, your family and those who are caring for you in the hospital or wherever you may be, and then what you want your loved ones to know. So we're going to go through each of those. We're going to open that document and we're going to walk through the whole thing. So, on the first page, just kind of briefly explains the logistics. There's nothing here it does say, I've highlighted here in the last paragraph, as you sign this, this takes away any advance directive you had before. So this document replaces a legal advance directive and durable medical power of attorney. It is intended to do so. So if you want to have the same person, then great, just get this document because it is a more detailed document, most likely, than the legal one from your lawyer. All right, so the first page just kind of goes over the details of that. The second page, on to wish one, probably the most important one. Obviously, you want your agent to be aware that they are your agent. You never want to drop this on the person after the fact. You bring this to the hospital and they get a phone call and lo and behold, oh, you happen to be the agent of this person. You want them to know, you want to make a shared decision with this person, sign this document with them, and be sure that it is someone that you trust. And you should also have a second and third choice, just given various contingencies. Always good to cover your bases. But this person should be at least 18 years old. They should not be your healthcare provider. So I could not be this person, nor can it be any owner or operator of a healthcare or residential facility. Right? There are some ulterior motives. A residential facility owner is going to want to keep you in the bed for as long as possible. So may keep that plug in for longer, maybe unnecessarily. So you don't want people with ulterior motives or some biases to be making your decisions. So you don't want an employee or a spouse, an employee of your healthcare provider. And the last caveat here is they said you shouldn't have somebody who's an agent or proxy for 10 or more people. I couldn't find out the reason why, but maybe they believe there's some nefarious things going on if somebody's a proxy for 10 or more people. But if you have a lot of relations, that may very well be the case. So in any case, it wants to be someone you trust. Because when you look over here on the next page, page 5, you want to read these in detail because you're going to be, when you have this document signed, if you do not cross out any of these things, then these are the powers that you are granting this healthcare agent that you're assigning in here. And that is including the decision to continue care that's keeping you alive. Whether you're cognizant of the world around you or not, they are going to be allowed to make that decision. Do we keep going or do we, in colloquial and maybe some somewhat crude terms, pull the plug? They can consent to admission to assisted living, hospital, hospice, or nursing home. So they're basically in control of your life. So you want to go make sure that you agree that this person is going to be able to make those decisions. The fourth one down, make the decision to request, take away, or not give medical treatments, including artificially provided food and water and other treatments to keep me alive. And they are allowed to take any legal action needed to carry out my wishes. Those are some of the big ones, but this is where you want to go through, read each of those statements, make sure that that is something that you would grant this person, and if not, if you're uncomfortable with it, then you would mark that statement out. And if there's anything additional you'd like to add, any additional powers you'd like to grant them, or caveats that you'd like to note about these, you can add that in the lines below. If I change my mind about the healthcare agent, destroy all copies of this 5-wish form, and then tell someone that has been the case so that can get documented somewhere. Because this is essentially, like I said, a legal document. If this is with you and signed, then this is what the people that are taking care of you are going to operate from. Any questions on that so far? All right, so let's go to wish 2. Let me advance forward here. See if I'm missing anything. Yeah. Okay. All right, so here's where we get into the nitty-gritty of it all. And this is your wish for the kind of medical treatment you want or don't want. It's worthwhile reading what life support treatment means to me. So there is comas, there is brain death, there is the chance of recovery, there's no chance of recovery, and so we'll go over that on the next page. But life support means any medical procedure, device, or medication to keep me alive. And then it goes into great detail about what those mean. You can do some editing of this. Obviously, this document is your document. You can say what you want, but it would behoove you to be as clear as possible for the person making the decisions. Get black and white. We have something in the hospital called do not resuscitate. which means that if you come into the hospital and you can't breathe or your heart has stopped, we're not going to do anything. There is sort of a caveat of that is do not intubate. So we would do CPR and drugs, but we wouldn't stick a tube down your throat. So you can make little adjustments like that, but that makes it very hard on the caregiver's side to kind of move in that gray area. So it's nice to have these definitive decisions. And so on the next page, it goes through 4 different, I don't want to say likely scenarios, but possible scenarios that we could find ourselves in. We could be close to death, and that means that I am likely to die within a short period of time, and life support treatment would only delay that inevitability. You either want to have it, the life support treatment, you don't want to have the life support treatment, or you're going to tell your power of attorney or your agent to defer to your doctor's decision. What does the doctor say? Is this going to help? What would the doctor suggest? So you can choose one of those 3 things for each of these scenarios. First one, close to death. Second one, in a coma and not expected to wake up or recover. And this is probably going to be one of those where they may defer to what the doctor says. Whereas if you're close to death, permanent and severe brain damage, or in any other condition under which you would not wish to be kept alive, it's pretty straightforward for your agent to make that decision. But if you're in a coma and there's somewhat of recovery, that's where you're probably going to defer to what the medical professionals who are consulting, what their decision may be. But again, if you were in permanent or severe brain damage and the doctors have said that this is the case and there's no chance of recovery, you would mark, I don't want life support, I do want life support, or I'm going to defer that decision to what the doctor would suggest. Okay, any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. Yeah. Okay, so those are the main thrusts of it. The healthcare agent is very similar to the legal document. The Wish 2 goes into much greater detail than any living will from an attorney generally does. And then Wish 3, 4, and 5 we'll go into next. And those are just sort of, I think they're just marked with bullet points. You can certainly cross them out, but once you start reading through them, it's kind of like all of those really kind of make sense. This is how I would want to see someone being treated, and this is certainly how I would want to be treated as well. But it just sort of puts into words so that the people around you can have a point of reference to say, okay, this is our goal here. This is what we want to do. We want to make sure that they are comfortable. And it goes into detail about you can play some music, you can have certain personal items, if you want a pastor or any other religious services. But some of the basics, I want my lips moist and stop the dryness. I want to have warm baths often. These are things that should go without saying, but is nice to kind of have and remind those around who are caring for you, this is what you want, and this is how it should be happening. And so these are just kind of reinforcing that. And that's one of the beauties of this document is it allows people who are just kind of confused and not knowing what to do, especially in a situation where you're not dead yet, but you're dying, and it gives them the roadmap to kind of navigate that. And so the Wish 3, Wish 4, and Wish 5 are exactly what that is. And you can read those on your own. And then Wish 5, I think it is important to note that after my death, I would like my body to be buried or cremated. That is a big, I think, source of stress for people who don't know, who have maybe been disconnected from their families and don't know what that wish may be, because that's a big decision point. So that's a good one to be done. And then if you're cremated, what do you want to have done with those cremated remains? My mother, I'll go through here. Let me just go to the last slide. My mother, we have talked about the 5 wishes, and she has said since I was a little kid, that song will be playing, Spirit in the Sky, and she wants her ashes to be packed into a firework and sent into the sky and exploded. And she has told me that since I was a child for whatever reason. But nonetheless, and I think we talked about an interesting story the other day where a gentleman wanted to have his ashes on goose's wings, And so his sons packed his ashes in shotgun shells and launched him at gooses. And so, whatever you want to have done, you should have done, and you should wish for it and make it explicit so that people can then carry out those wishes. On the last page, you can see all the legalese. There is the last page. Your signature and address, the witnesses, and you've got 2 witnesses there. But again, you'll see there Missouri, North Carolina, South Carolina, and West Virginia are the only states that require a notarization of this document. And then there are an additional 4 states who require an additional legal form for it. But we don't have to worry about that here. Once you sign this with the appropriate witnesses, without the notarization in Wyoming or Nebraska, this is your legal document. So give it to the people who need to have it and have copies where it needs to be referenced. Exactly what I just said. Share copies widely, have the conversation with people, revisit it over time, make sure it still fits with your desires, and that the people around you, that it's up to date so that the people around you know what to do. And then just kind of having this conversation. This is generally when we do the will or the advance directives, we go in with our partner or spouse and we have that discussion, and it's between that small group, and the family doesn't really know until, well, that document has to come out and they have to reference it, and it just doesn't have the detail that they need. This will do that. So this is a really, really great free resource that we're providing, and I can't tell you, I have innumerable personal examples of situations in this facility where we're left really wondering, what would this person want? How do we go about it? You've got family members who have varying opinions about how it should occur. Maybe they haven't been talking for quite some time. This is a very common scenario. And when these wishes are delineated clearly, it can remove so much stress and allow them to kind of focus on remembering you and getting the things done that they need to get done, as opposed to having the additional duress of wondering if they're doing the right thing and then carrying that guilt forward. So, good. The final gift of love. So, what questions do you have, if any? We will keep copies of this in your medical record. You should have these wherever your stuff is, that if the paramedics come to the house and they need to grab some stuff, this is one of the documents that they should have. If you're going to a facility that doesn't have that copy, but it is a legal document. It replaces whatever legal healthcare power of attorney you have done before, if you sign it. So, okay, anything else? Great. Spread the word. We've got copies. We're happy to give those copies to people who request them. So if this was something that you find useful, please pass the word. Thank you very much.